Hello, everybody. A lot of my work lately has been with LXD containers on my local laptop under Windows Subsystem for Linux, and I finally got a similar container set up on my network-attached storage server, a server that's sitting elsewhere in the house that's able to run the same kind of Linux containers as I'm doing on my laptop. And I received here an email at 2:30 a.m. this morning, 8 hours ago, from myself. And it has an attachment of 3 cats that don't exist, my logo, a little message to me in HTML. And that is a very good start. And I thought I'd put it in perspective for you with a little morning reading of my journal. You need a personal server in your life, and the time is nigh. It can be incredibly difficult to stay on task every day in pursuit of some goal, especially if it's just you yourself trying to make it happen. With the outside influence of parents or having spent money on education, you're employing outside influences to keep you going. It's valid, but they are not always genuinely of your own choosing, whatever those goals and such you're pushing yourself towards are. Sometimes you're lucky and the direction parents and schools compel you are the same direction some deeper internal force wants you to go, but not always. In fact, the residual effect of outside influence can feel eventually like internal influence, maybe for the rest of your life, because you've internalized it, and that external force can override your internal preferences. The problem is knowing. Knowing comes from a result of thinking and speculating and testing and doing. This is self-reflection and knowing yourself. Problem is, even this is a skill which, if you develop under the influence of outsiders, even YouTubers, it's still not necessarily your own. It's hard to know your own thoughts. You need a breaking free of influence process that still somehow conditions you and compels you to move forward. So how to condition yourself to go in the direction you want to go and do the things you want to do? How do you not get derailed by the powerful outside influences in your life? You make something that serves you and only you in your life. You make a server and have it play the role of parent, school, or YouTuber under your own autonomous control. You choose your own path in such a way that it reinforces you staying on it. You form good habits, new normals. I'm in my 50s now, and from time to time have had servers in my life. They were almost always for employers. On those rare occasions, I set servers up for myself. They didn't have the staying power to help me navigate my life long term. And by long term, I'm talking 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Can you keep a server running on your behalf for 10 years, helping you out in life? I've been on many false starts to that end, including using Raspberry Pis, virtual machines, and yes, even real physical server-grade hardware in my home. The problem is a dynamic life and outside influences, moving, rearranging, even just neglect of the server long enough to forget how it works and not wanting the extra overhead in your life of refiguring it all out and enabling it again. Disruptions to setting up one's own personal server prevent certain accelerating compounding return effects that you want and need in your life to move you forward from ever occurring. They are interrupting, they are blocking your blossoming. Most of us go through life like a barely germinated seed sitting on fertile soil with plenty of breathable carbon in the air, but the power of the sun is blocked by taller and more spread out trees. Your figurative seed never busts open to send its roots down and its leaves up. Feel familiar? Well, if you have even the most basic technical leanings, such as the ability to use Microsoft Excel and do the occasional macro, then you have all the ability necessary to have a permanent, ongoing, resilient to disruption server in your life. It's getting easier every year. I did it the hard way in my 20s and 30s. trying to make my mark in New York City, but it didn't stick. Now that I'm in my 50s, I've stepped back to assess tools, methodology, and technique, and I find it now uniquely doable thanks to LXD Linux containers. I tested the technique directly on my laptop, the machine you see me working on now. I did things to make my code run exactly as it would on a cheap generic Linux server, so that now any device you can buy and set up can work that way. This is not true of using Windows or Mac as the server, because they require you to use their proprietary software in their ways, which thus creates a dependency and an expiration date and fragility in the long term. Everything about a personal server is about generic Linux. That's where Linux containers come in. And even if you're on a Windows or Mac system, mastering generic Linux should be your goal if you're thinking long term. Once the techniques worked out on my laptop, simulating a server worked out, I looked around to the things in my house which could also work like a generic Linux server. My laptop first, what next? I had a device called a NAS, for Network Attached Storage. That acronym sells such devices short. Since these devices need to provide network protocol services, they actually need little computers built in. Once you build a little computer into something that's just supposed to give you more drive space, it's natural to use it for more things. The precedent is set by DHCP servers that issue IP addresses in all our homes. Your Wi-Fi router is working in this same way, but it lacks the freedom for many other services than DHCP. NASs don't have such limitations. Since NASs already need built-in computers, and powerful built-in computers are so easy to provide cheaply, it only makes sense to make NASs serve applications. So the AS of NAS can also stand for application server, and one of those applications can be hosting LXD Linux containers. And therefore, everything you've been running in server mode on your laptop is now transferable to the home cloud. Since your NAS is on all the time, you've now got a generic Linux server running 24/7 without paying a cent to any cloud provider. I received an email at 2:30 this morning telling me so. Boop, here's my email, 2:30 a.m. This came in as a result of yesterday's work. If you want to see what led to this, go check out the prior video. Now I've got a generic Linux server running 24/7 from my NAS. Ho, ho, ho. If I wanted to move it from my NAS to some other hardware, I either move the container or rerun my server install script, which work on almost any hardware that support Linux because highly generic. I have now both easy portability and reproducibility of the now lifetime 24/7 server system. All right. So what now? I did a little bit more thinking since I wrote that, and I'll bring you into my simple note, and I'll copy paste over the follow-up thoughts, and then actually changing the email that gets sent to me and such I will do at a later time, because I have my day job to attend to, similar but different work. It all takes advantage of this work I'm doing. It's all interconnected. The great integrated life. So what now? Add more intent to your life. Create a plan for clear daily forward progress and naturally incorporate it into that email. Customize it to you and what you know about yourself. Be realistic. For me, it's publishing some writing and getting some video to document my actions, my systems, my evolution before the day has barely gotten underway. So that's what you see me doing here now. Use this slightly altered and expanded perspective to improve your performance in your aforementioned day job, the great integrated life. what you do for yourself on the one hand, helps what you do for your employer on the other, and you're spared from having to go the entrepreneurial route because you're on this wonderful upward spiral of internal carpenter-like skills for information tech that can't be taken away from you. Win back, lost time. Win back, lost time, the extra overhead of this process incurs, because anything new you add to your process is more overhead. But you win it back by working smarter and not harder. If this is not possible, re-examine the intent you're trying to set for yourself with the emails. Make adjustments to what you're trying to actually get yourself to do. So for me now, it's just these little chisel strikes, refining that email and the process surrounding it. Switch it from, the process surrounding it. Switch the process surrounding it from just using a GNU screen terminal session started manually, which I can show you, right? If you were to click into, say, LXD on the NAS, it'll immediately log you in without a password challenge. That's one of the things I did in my last few videos. And we can do screen-ls to list those screen sessions running, and then we can screen reattach to cats. And it's exactly the way I left it yesterday. Here is, some of the leftover, me editing in Vim, but then I started the script, Python space pulse.py. That is the manual starting of the thing that sends me an email now every 24 hours, every morning at 2:30 a.m. I'm going to shift that time, but it gets started manually. Let me Control-C it. Keyboard interrupt. I should get the prompt back in a moment. I should. There's my prompt. Clear. You can tell I'm still in the screen session by this black bar down here, the time and stuff. And I can vim pulse.py, which is the file that lives in that location. And instead of sending the email to me at 6:30 a.m., which transforms because of daylight savings into 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. So if I want it to truly arrive at 6:30, I have to send it that much earlier. 12:30, 1:30, 12:30, 11:30, 10:30 a.m. according to this this time. So 24, 23, 22, that's 2200 hours. So I'm actually switching it to send it the day before at 2200 hours. Oh, am I going in the wrong direction? 2:30, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I want it to come 4 hours later, yeah, I did that wrong. I did the math in the wrong direction. I have to send it at what is really 10 a.m. 4 hours in that direction. Shift R, 10. Okay, so now it'll arrive to me at 6:30 a.m. instead of 2:30 a.m. like I planned. So that's one of those little chisel strike things. I wake up, an email is sent to me. I might even see the alert come up. That's the idea. You want to play off the things in your life that can help you form habits. And I manually start it. It won't send it to me now. I manually start it like this. And it won't send me anything now until that time period, until the scheduling kicks in, until 6:30 a.m., my time occurs again. But it has to be manually started, and that's what I want to change now as the next step. I'm switching it from using GNU Screen in a terminal session only, where I start it manually, to using GNU Screen in a terminal session that is started automatically by Linux at PowerUp using systemd to create a Linux service, which automatically starts at startup, and if it quits, exits. If it exits, it automatically restarts. There's a number of other things that being a Linux service will give you or enable. But these are the three main things that I'm looking for. These are the next step of little baby step changes that's going to be coming in my system that emails me every day. And then, of course, once that's done, I will, layer in better messaging and intent to keep compelling me forward every day. And this has been an example. It's very meta. So there you have it. I do this, and that triggers off my little macro, which will republish this online. So if you wanted to read any of this stuff that I'm typing to you, there it is. It just got published under the GitHub Pages system right there. It's all done. And it takes a while to push out on the publish, but you can see the earlier version of the blog post immediately by going to mikelev.in, going into my blog, and there it is. You need a personal server in your life. The time is nigh, and you can read the article up until the parts I just read today. On a refresh, it'll add the stuff I just added, but not until after Git. And GitHub really does its thing to push out the Jekyll files and get them published. So there you have it. I hope to see you again soon, and hope to keep compelling myself forward every day and to have you join in on the journey.